So I got back from Rise of Skywalker. I struggled with if I should say anything because, you know, seriously, any act of creation is a tiny miracle. And when you look at all the people who contributed to that movie, it's incredibly well made. It's well performed. The music's great. They fucking shipped the thing across the world. I mean, you don't want to, So first, let me just be clear. I mean, any act of creation is worth celebrating, especially at that scale. So I'm not like, oh, let's fucking trash somebody's fucking work. No. It's just the problem is the movie, my brain is really struggling to come to grips with this movie. Overall, and I even tried to watch this movie through the eyes of a kid. I had heard some of the things going in. I'm like, I'm going to kind of take my inner 10-year-old to a movie date. I'm just going to like watch it like I would have watched it as a kid. And I'm really bothered by this movie. And I think probably fundamentally when I'm driving home, thinking about why does it bother me so much? Why can't I just say, nah, I didn't like it. Move on with my life. And I will, of course. I'm not going to move on. But I think fundamentally what it is about this movie that I'm struggling to come to terms with is it has the fingerprints of the creators all over it. Like so many decisions in this movie, it doesn't break the fourth wall like it looks at the audience and winks, but it may as well have that level of ham-fistedness of you can just sense the director, the writer, the design by committee, the creation by committee, the flop sweat of we only have so much time and we have to get this out. And I don't mean it feels desperate. It means there's just so many decisions in this movie that clearly don't come from an organic place of what's best for the story. And it's more about, it's the first movie I think I've ever seen where it's so clear that there's a mandate at a executive level, whether that's Abrams or whether that's the screenwriters or Kathy Kennedy or Bob Iger, or maybe none of that's happening at all. And it's just my perception. But so much about this movie feels like it's trying to check off a list of boxes that when you see these characters that I was in the theater when I was 7 years old when I first met Han and Luke and Leia and 3PO and R2. So many fingerprints of people today are all over this where they're trying to check off boxes that it almost feels vulgar. I'm not trying to be dramatic, but it feels like it's almost like you're seeing a first draft. A lot of people have said this feels like it's fan fiction with $200 million budget. That's what it feels like. It does not feel like a real movie. And in that, because it's got so many things that are beloved, so many characters, so many worlds that are beloved, it feels vulgar. It feels like you shouldn't really be turn away. You shouldn't be watching this. It's not appropriate to see this. This is someone's first draft, This is Reddit's fanboy version, and they filmed it, And it's not that I hated it. There were definitely some cool parts in that movie. But I don't know, man. It really bothers me. It does not sit well with me. It's the first movie I can think of that, like, I wish I could get it out of my head. Like, I feel like I'm in a dream and I should wake up. And I'm not some crazy Star Wars fanboy. Like, I wanted this to be... I didn't care. Star Wars is fine with me. I grew up with it. I loved it. I'm not super invested. Some of the movies are great. Some of them are shit. But it's overall... all Star Wars is good Star Wars. But this movie just felt exceptionally bizarre to me. Like, the only thing I can explain is because it feels like the real world intruded over this a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, and it's just those things do not fit together. And my brain is kind of struggling to settle with what this thing is that I just saw. So, I mean, overall, I didn't like it as a movie. I applaud people who make anything creative. I think it's great. I'm glad if you enjoyed it. That's great you enjoyed it. But I really wish this could leave my brain now because something really bothers me about this movie. And I don't know if I have the ability to articulate it, or maybe I've just articulated it and I'm just going to have to process it. It's just a fucking movie, but movies are powerful, man. I couldn't stop thinking about The Irishman for 4 or 5 days in a good way after I saw it. This is kind of the opposite. Like, I can't stop thinking about this, but in a way of like, God, I wish I'd never seen this. It's like sometimes you hear people who watch footage. I'm not being silly, but you hear people who watch like footage of awful things happening on the internet, and they're like, "Oh, dude, don't watch it, Jaffe. You'll never be able to unsee it." It's kind of like this. It's like, dude, this is kind of what happens when when you reach out and you crowdsource your script and they actually do it, and you're like, it feels terrible. I feel terrible. To quote Han Solo, I feel terrible. I need to go drink something now. Goodbye.